What's up, Pandas? Peter from Panda here. Hey, ordered myself this NC Star red dot optic, and I wanted to show it to you because it's actually pretty interesting. I want to show you some things that I really like about it and what makes it a little different. And then I pulled out my other rifle here with this optic, which is the Bushnell TRS-32, and wanted to compare them because in some ways this NC Star optic, red dot, one magnification, is better despite it being cheaper. Now, there's some things that you may like more for your application, but I thought I'd show them. So first of all, let me just throw them up here because the NC Star is essentially the same size and shape as this Bushnell, and I really like this Bushnell. And one of the things that, besides them looking very similar, they have a pretty similar operation. They have your adjustments, the top and side here, their caps, they're held on by these little rubber straps. On the Bushnell, it's kind of this, three-prong thing. And actually, I'm not a huge fan of this because you can't unscrew both at the same time. You have to unscrew one and then move it out of the way because when the cap gets to the highest point, it's stretching the rubber out too much. On the NC Star, each of these caps has its own rubber tether. And so you can do whatever you want with it. And on top of that, you can see here that the rubber tether kind of works as an O-ring on the bottom. So when you screw the cap all the way down, it actually, I think, kind of works like a little bit of an O-ring, a waterproof seal to keep water out of your adjustment knobs there. So that's actually pretty cool. Obviously, it's in FDE, which is, it's pretty nice finish here. The other thing that I would say is that this mount scope ring, I believe, came with this one. And so you can see that it's a 30mm ring and it just fits on top of there. It screws down. It's not a quick release. This one is not either, but it's kind of a cantilevered mount as opposed to straight up and down. To be honest, I'm not a big fan of the cantilever unless you're trying to get this to reach out over your forend here, and it's typically for longer scopes that have magnification and et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's kind of doesn't really make a lot of sense on a non-magnification scope. And again, it's one power, but it is what it is. The other thing that both of these have are built-in flip-up protectors, which is pretty cool. I'm a big fan of that. And they do have a pretty significant spring in there, so they flip up, they stay in place. No big problem there. The difference here, though, is that the NC Star has 3 dot colors: red, green, and blue. I will go ahead and scroll through those here for you and show them. But before I do that, I want to show you that when you're looking through this lens, you don't get really bad color distortion. So the tint on the lens isn't too bad. You're actually kind of getting a fairly decent representation of the real world. You can see maybe there's just a little bit of like a purplish, maybe just a little bit of a red tinge. Let me throw up the Bushnell here because I want to show this to you. I've safety checked this weapon, but I'm not going to show you that I've safety checked it so you can suck it if you have an issue with it. You can see there, as we're looking through the Bushnell TRS, and I've noticed this, and I kind of didn't really notice it right off the bat so much. It has a little bit of a green tinge, right? So even there, when I'm looking at the brown dirt, it looks a little green. Now, you may be saying, what's the big deal? Okay, it's a little bit of a color tint there to amplify the red dot. All right, that's true. But what it means is with this Bushnell, I can't use a laser bore sight with it because I can't see the laser dot through it. For whatever reason, that green tint washes out a red laser dot when I try to bore sight it with it. So it's totally useless. And what I end up having to do is use like a mount and to zero it in, or a table stand to zero it in to get the laser on, and then I will use a target down at that end to kind of line it up with the scope. So that's kind of annoying because the green kind of washes out a little bit. So I was actually really impressed that this has a pretty good real view. Now you can see right there on the left side in the 9 o'clock position is the emitter, and that's where you're going to get your color dots. And let's go ahead and scroll through them. What it looks like here on the side, maybe a little hard to see, is that it says it's on 1. And so when I see it on the 1 position, it's kind of off. We'll try to just quickly scroll through just so you can see what the dot colors look like. And it's a really stiff click. And there's the red. On camera, they always kind of look a little weird. And it's always a little hard to do it one-handed. We scroll through and it gets a little brighter. To be honest, the lowest to the brightest setting is not super, there's not a huge difference in my opinion, but it's kind of bright out right now, so it might be a little hard to tell. Let me see if we can do this a little bit smarter. And okay, so there's the green, and the green is really bright and visible, so I'm pretty happy with that. The green dot, in some ways, actually looking at it, looks a little bigger than the red dot. And that's the blue dot. Again, you telling it's blue on this camera, and I apologize. Okay, there you can kind of see it. Now it's really looks blue, and on the darker background on the white, it can be a little hard to see. You can still see it. So there is a blue dot there, and it does work. So it's cool. Let's take a look at the parallax, because this is where I also found maybe something interesting. Okay, guys, this isn't going to be the easiest thing to see, but I do have the red dot on there, and I'm flagging these flowers out in the garden. And you can see the red dot. There's actually a flower right below that red dot, so I'm kind of trying to flag this one particular flower. But what I wanted to show you is what I was actually impressed with the parallax here. If I move it to side, you can see it's staying right in the same place. You can see when you get right over to this edge, the emitter can kind of cover it up. But generally, it's staying right on that dot, or that flower, up and down. I'm not getting much of a problem on parallax. Now, what I've noticed is that if I swing, say you're swinging your head all the way out to the right on the furthest right edge, I'm getting a little drift to the right. So you can kind of see that flower. I've got it right on that yellow flower. The dot, for the most part, stays right on there. So parallax is actually pretty good, even for a red dot site at this price point. But when you get right over to the super right edge, the red dot is probably just off. You know, it would probably clip the right edge of that flower. So there is just a little bit of distortion on this side. But overall, I was really impressed with the parallax. I kind of gave it a thorough look there on a couple of different targets and lighting. And so really impressed. This NC Star red dot is a great budget piece so far. We'll see how it holds up at the range. But overall, right now, construction, accuracy, and everything else looks pretty good. I'm certainly pretty impressed with it. And so if you're looking for an optic to go on a kind of a rifle or a pistol build that just needs to work and doesn't need to have a lot of frills and is kind of budget oriented, this might be the right one for you. So Peter Von Panda for the NC Star Red Dot Scope, out.